Welcome to Your Voice Heard with Dr. Marilyn Pendleton. Don't forget to click like and subscribe to my channel. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Your Voice Heard with Dr. Marilyn Pendleton. And here we amplify the voices of grievers. We are giving them a platform to share their journey to recovery and resilience. You know, we don't have to be stuck, and there is always a possibility of hope and happiness after grief. I just ask you to click like and subscribe. Today, I'm very excited. Our guest is J.D. Danny McCabe, and he is a Pittsburgh, PA native and the author of The Third Gift. I just started listening to the audiobook. I'm on chapter 5. It's amazing. It's chilling. It's transparent. And this is a true story about his tumultuous marriage gone wrong. Danny speaks with nonprofit organizations and various groups across the country about his experiences. And I will tell you, he was actually on a platform that does international work. So Danny, JD, I would say no longer national, but international. From an early age, Danny was independent and a practical realist. He began writing his diary as a historical journal of events in the demise of his marriage that evolved quickly and came without context. Danny was encouraged to share this unbelievable voyage in rediscovering himself by the many people who witnessed and heard about his journey firsthand. He is blessed with 2 beautiful adult children. JD resides in the Charleston, South Carolina area. JD, thank you so much for joining us. And Charleston is lovely. My first visit there was last year. But, tell our audience first how we connected.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you. What a beautiful intro. Yeah, we connected because I was on Love Bay Radio last Friday night, a program called Suffering in Silence with Tia Evangelist, and then Jennifer Peterkin was on there, and then Aaron Mitchell was on there as well. And so I'm going to come back on there in September and October for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And you were gracious enough to reach out to me, and I thank you for purchasing the audiobook and for diving in and for recommending it to a few folks. And it's interesting the other connections we've made when we spoke earlier today around the Sisters of Mercy and the connection back to my aunt. So it's you made my day with that connection. So that is how we met. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure, and it's a pleasure to be on your platform. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And you are the author of the book, The Third Gift, My Dance with the Devil and Her Mother.
Yes.
So can you share with our audience about that title, where it comes from?
Yeah.
A bit of your journey.
Absolutely. And I'll try to be brief. It's a 360-page book, but first-time author. It's not my full-time job. I still maintain a full-time job in the medical pharmaceutical industry. I have been encouraged. I was encouraged to write the book by my female therapist at the time, because she's like, look, there's not many, if any, stories about men on the other side of the equation. And so the reception and the support that I've received from the various social media platforms has been humbling. My vision Dr. Marilyn, my vision is to be able to share any of the proceeds I have with several nonprofits, and I've been blessed to be able to do that the last couple of years through the generosity of folks that have purchased the book. But the title of the book, the first two gifts are my kids that you referenced in your beautiful opening, and the third gift was, again, we were happily, I would say at the time, as I knew it at the time, right? Our perspectives and our perceptions change, but as I knew it at the time, I was in a stable, happy marriage for 17 years, very little discord. And then the wheels came off. But the first two gifts are my kids. The third gift, after many other events, we separated. We were headed towards divorce, and in North Carolina, because of the backlog court system, they prefer that you go through mediation. So it was at our first mediation, other than them asking me to pay her more money than I make. She made the accusation through an attorney that was floating between the two rooms. I was with my attorney. She was with hers. We were separated. And it was the accusation that I gave her sexually transmitted herpes. So you will get to that when you get to chapter 10, titled The Third Gift. Thus the title of the book, because it truly was a gift. That accusation, after I got over the shock and the betrayal and the anger and all the emotions flooded in quickly, but ultimately the emotion that rose to the top, again, very quickly, it was the most surreal experience I have ever had, was gratitude. And I was grateful to the man above to go, thank you. I failed to see what was going on, but that accusation, I'm like, okay, I get it now. You had been abusing me and accusing me, you and your mother, accusing me of infidelity, of drug addiction, of stealing money from our marital account. It was a classic example of projection and gaslighting at its finest. And as it would turn out, everything that she was accusing me of doing, she was actually doing. So given my knowledge in the industry, when she made that accusation early the next morning, and I will restate, very early the next morning, because I didn't sleep that night after the revelation, because I'm like, wow, because prior to that, I would spend 9 days in a psychiatric facility, involuntarily committed. I was abused and emotionally abused. And on one occasion, I now would say I was sexually assaulted by her because she was trying to infect me with something. The only reason that she revealed the positive test for herpes, which she's absolutely positive for it. I have been tested multiple times for everything under the sun, and I am negative, is because she was certain she had infected me. So 3-4 weeks before I was exiled out of the home, we had been together 3 nights in a row when we hadn't been intimate in 4 months. And so as I looked back on all of that, and you can imagine all this started flooding my mind. When I started looking back at all that, I'm like, wow, I truly was married to the devil. I would later discover, after we had been separated for about a year, the legal journey started. I would also discover, and I only gave a small portion of the book, because by the time I discovered it, I had discovered so much else that I was not even shocked by it. But she had been poisoning me with arsenic. So I had been chronically exposed to arsenic, which I would discover through a hair and nail test that a liver specialist would conduct about a year after we had separated. And so when I dug into her medical claims and her pharmacy claims after that accusation, that's when I discovered that she pretty much had contracted every STD out there. She had a hidden prescription drug addiction going back at least 5 years. She was addicted to 3 different formulations of amphetamines, benzodiazepines, mood stabilizers. And when her miracle worker, and it's all laid out in the book is very detailed, but her miracle,
it is.
Yeah, her miracle worker, who she had been starting to see for cash, who was paying him cash, I would discover after all of this, I would discover that he had gotten in trouble with the DEA and the North Carolina Medical Board for inappropriate prescribing of narcotics. So she was paying him cash. He wouldn't file with insurance. He would write whatever the heck she wanted. And when he got into trouble, and before she was able to find another psychiatrist that would write whatever the heck she wanted, I would discover that she used our kids for 2 years to fill, let me do the math, 600 days worth of amphetamines in my kids' names.
Wow.
30 months. I want to be clear, because when I posted about this, some people are like, you can't get a 600-day prescription. It was like, no, it was 30-day prescriptions. for 20 months.
I'm
I
a
built,
nurse. I get it.
you get it. And I really look forward to your perspective from a nurse's standpoint. Um, and yeah, I built spreadsheets on all of this stuff to map out when she was filling her prescriptions. Because what she had done when I went in to look at it was the first thing the next morning, like 5:30 in the morning, I discovered that she had two prescriptions every month in our insurance company's website, our plan, that were marked private, and I made multiple phone calls to the insurance company and told them, look, I want to know, first of all, how does she set this up? And they said, oh, we allow people to set this up. They can conceal certain medications. And I'm like, this is a woman that would always tell me, she mocked me with everything. She would tell me, I don't even have a username or password for our insurance company's website. And I'm like, well, you can create one. I'm not keeping it under lock and key.
Mm-hmm.
But she sure did, because she knew how to establish profiles where her prescriptions were private. So I got to the right person, and ultimately I said, I'm paying all the medical bills because I was the primary card holder. I said, I
Mm-hmm.
want to know what these are and who was writing them. And it would turn out it was her psychiatrist, that she was ultimately found her way to a psychiatrist that would prescribe whatever she wanted. So in the book, as you read it, and being a nurse, you know the broken healthcare system we have in the States. She was able to jump from institution to institution and self-report, that she had an autoimmune disease, which we would later discover she does not. We
Wow.
would subpoena her medical records because her story was going to be that she's too sick to ever work again, and he's going to need to pay her alimony for the next 17 years, and da da da. Well, there were no medical experts that came forward to confirm her diagnosis of an autoimmune disease. And matter of fact, it was quite contrary, that when we got the medical records, a prestigious clinic down in Florida that she had visited twice said, no, she doesn't have an autoimmune disease. And if she does, she has a very minor form of it. So over the course of 5 years of our marriage falling apart, I would endure 9 days of psychiatric lockup, involuntarily committed, two facilities with a police escort in between. And I would discover that 2 days before I was involuntarily committed, she was writing letters behind my back to my psychiatrist at the time and to the family practitioner. The exact letters are in the book, unedited. And so I didn't discover that until I got my medical records for our alimony trial. I'm like, what are these? 2 days before I was involuntarily committed, these letters were sent to my providers, and neither one of them mentioned anything to me about receiving these letters.
Wow. And you know what? I will tell you, when you're sharing your story, two things for the audience.
Yep.
First, a lot of people look at domestic abuse, and it's often looking at the woman being the vulnerable one and the victim. However, there are men who experience
Mm.
domestic abuse. I know some. I know a couple of them.
Mm.
And what is so chilling, not the part about the arsenic, but when I'm listening on to your book on audio, it just aligns. It's so similar to the experiences other people, men that I know who are friends and family members, what they've experienced.
Yep.
The other piece is, because I'm a legal nurse consultant and I'm hearing this and case preparation and things like that. I'm just like, no, there shouldn't be anything last minute, and information should have been accessed earlier on. But you don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
so you are giving it a good faith effort. And oftentimes when we're in relationship or marriage, we have these hopes, dreams, and expectations that are unrealized. And that is absolutely, that's grief, unrealized hope, dream, and expectation. And I would like for you to share with the audience um, what in your journey did you find most significant to help you recover from the violation of trust? And also, your two gifts, your son and your daughter.
Yeah.
Um, and what I recognize is parental alienation.
Yes.
So can you tell me and tell our listeners and our viewers about your experience in those areas?
Absolutely. And so I'll start with the parental alienation. So my daughter was 14, 15 at the time that things started to unravel. And my now ex-wife took advantage of her age and her vulnerability and began behind my back filling her ears with all sorts of falsehoods that your father has an anger issue, your father has a drug problem. I essentially lost 2 years of my daughter's life. So you talk about grief, right? And so even when I was in the home, while I was still in the home, I'll never forget coming home from my 9 day stay at a psychiatric facility. And when I saw her for the first time, I got a side hug from her. I could tell that she was uncertain. She was afraid. She didn't know what in the heck was going on. She was in high school. My son was away at college. So fortunately, he was insulated from it. And 2 days before I was involuntarily committed, Dr. Marilyn, I drove to Charlotte, North Carolina to meet with him at his college bright and early in the morning to let him know everything that his mother was accusing me of doing, and essentially to ask your kid to stand by you and to believe in you. And I said, I believe I've already lost your daughter, but I need you to believe in me. I love your mom. I'm not doing drugs. I didn't cheat on her. I have no idea what's going on with her. I think a lot of her mentality, now I know it's just pure evil, but at the time I was attributing it to her autoimmune disease. But so I lost my daughter for essentially a couple of years. She came back into my life a little over 8 years ago, and I'm proud to say I'm going to celebrate her marriage on this coming Saturday to a wonderful man. But I couldn't be prouder of my kids for the choices that they've made, in spite of every excuse they had to make some poor choices. But from a trust perspective, um, I would say from a trust and from my first step, believe it or not. And I remember chatting with a buddy, telling him everything that was going on that I had discovered at the time, and that she, was poisoning me. And I said, but you know what? I see it as a gift. And he's like, what? How can you see it as a gift? She tried to kill you, man. And I said, I see it as a gift because I'm free now. I'm free, and I have a sense of the truth as to what was going on. And people don't understand, if she had not played that card, if she had not been greedy and evil to the depths of hell and played that card, I don't know where I'd be today. I would not have looked at her medical claims. I had no reason to suspect that she would ever be out running around on me. I had no reason to believe that she had a hidden prescription drug addiction. Everything that I started to see, I attributed to her alleged autoimmune disease. So I'm grateful to her, believe it or not, but I don't know where I'd be emotionally. And that was the first step. That bomb being dropped on me, July 7th, 2015. I'll never forget it. Was God smacking me across the face, saying, "Son, your marriage is over." Because I went into that mediation thinking, all right, I need to get access to some money so I can find a place to live for a little while, and we'll continue to go to therapy and maybe try to work through this and try to figure out what is actually going on in the marriage. But God said, no, your marriage is over, okay? And I'm going to give you the start of the truth. And I will be forever grateful to him, forever grateful to my family and friends that stood by me through 5 years of tremendous hell. But I will say gratitude is ultimately what led me to peace, to go, look, I've got an opportunity. We just got to get through this. And I went through, in addition to the alimony trial, I had to defend myself in a domestic violence trial because she filed trumped up charges against me 4 months after I was out of the house. I was like, when they served me the papers, I'm like, what's this for? And they're like, yeah, we don't read them, sir. We just serve them. But yeah, she was asking for total custody of my daughter, and so I had to defend myself successfully against the domestic violence charge. So she pulled out all stops to set me up to try to destroy me, and yeah, so I would say gratitude, strengthening of my faith. I leaned into God more. And whenever things, and I was traveling a lot at the time for my job. This was pre-COVID. And whenever things would get too bad, I would find a church. I didn't care what denomination.
Mm,
I didn't care what denomination. I just needed to find the sanctity of some type of quiet and some space to be able to just sit and reflect and to pray to him and to thank him for the strength that he's given me thus far and to continue to walk with me. And I quickly said, and I'll never forget, in kneeling down in church, I quickly stopped asking why.
okay.
I found it to be a circular question, and we talked about it earlier as we prepared for this, but his time, right? Patience,
Right.
his time on his time. And all I said was, let your will be done, but just continue to walk with me. And he indeed has done that. So it took time to find peace again. It really did. And when the book came out and my mom passed away and some other things happened, I was dealing with some PTSD from my time in the psych facility, primarily with the younger kids. So I would
Mhm.
have nightmares about them showing up on my front porch with guns to their head and me not being able to do anything because they were legitimately suicidal. And so it was quite an eye-opening experience, for sure. But ultimately, it comes down to gratitude, comes down to being able to now establish boundaries. I'm a middle
Mhm.
child of nine, so I'm a selfless guy. I have a need to be needed, but I've learned,
Nine?
yeah, nine kids, yeah. So six boys, three girls. So I had to learn how to establish boundaries with folks and to keep my antennas up. But I will say for the last 4 years, I've been in a very healthy relationship that is night and day from what I've had before. And yeah, I mean, things are good. But to the listeners, anybody that's going through anything and you said it earlier, but hang on to hope,
Mhm.
lean into your faith, and just know that this is an opportunity. He's given you an opportunity to put you where he wants you. And he pulled me out of a marriage. It was an entire lie. Was it a lie for 23 years? I don't know. I will never know. But yeah, it was a loveless marriage for sure. And the subtitle of the book, I didn't call it My Dance with the Devil to grab people's attention because it's true. And I wrestled with it. I'm like, how we know evil exists, right? The world's evil, but
Mm.
you never expect you're going to be laying next to it every night.
Well, you know what? And my question to you is, what was the reception? What has the reception been about the book, particularly from men?
Yeah. Yeah. And so if I look at my social media followers, about 85% of them are female, which is fantastic. 15% of them are men, but I've heard from at least a couple of hundred
Mhm.
that have thanked me for writing the book, that have said that they've gone through similar situations, that they applaud me for sharing my story. A couple of them, they like, look, I'm gonna write my story. You've given me the courage to share my story as well. And I think the problem is, and I was thinking about it earlier today. When I look at the legal system, and my therapist said it, the judges, the lawyers, none of them understand this whole concept. We, as men, we come into the system with an inherent bias.
Yes,
All
you
she
do.
had to do was play the card that he's controlling, he's abusive, he has anger issues. She just had to say those three words and bring long lost friends to the stand to testify about stuff that happened 19 years ago.
Mhm.
And none of it was true, of course, but they came in to make up stories about how controlling I was and I wouldn't allow her to have friendships and none of it was true. But those three simple accusations and with no evidence to support it, and even her own mother would testify against me, a woman that I loved unconditionally for 20 plus years and never had a cross word with her. But she quickly turned on me like a cobra. And when you get to that in the audiobook, that was my favorite stuff to my favorite
Uh,
my favorite stuff to narrate. And most difficult was having to relive all of their testimony of my character assassination. So I took advantage of the concept of public record. They wanted $10,000 for written transcripts, so I said, just send me the audio files. And so I listened on my little iPad as I typed on my computer, as I typed out what I
mhm.
felt was pertinent to the book. But yeah, so there's
Well, you know what? When you speak of her mother, and I have gotten as far as, I guess, chapter 5
yeah,
and the beach.
yeah,
You went to on vacation to the beach, and we're not going to be a spoiler here because
right,
people
right,
need to get the get the book. And I said, "Wow, holy schmoly!"
yeah, yeah,
It just it boggles my mind, and that goes on every day.
yeah,
And there may be family members who are intimately involved in the fraud or
yeah, yeah.
involved in the gaslighting. And um and you think, oh, is it me?
Oh
Because
yeah.
all these other people are saying, you know,
You
it's you.
begin to believe it's you. And the mistake that I made for your listeners, and I've said this on many podcasts, the mistake I made initially, Dr. Marilyn, in the first 9 months was I told nobody what was going on. I
Mm,
lost all sorts of objectivity. I isolated myself. My kids really didn't know what was going on until it got really heated. I didn't confide in my large family. They didn't get involved until they came down when they found out I was involuntarily committed. They
mhm.
came to town to find out what the hell is going on. But yeah. So I would say to your listeners, if you're going through something, find somebody you trust, somebody you can confide in, to bring you back to a sense of objectivity. If I would
Yes.
have shared with one of my brothers that death threat and the suggestion I was addicted to porn and addicted to drugs, they would have asked some questions, of course, but they would have regrounded me in who I am. And so, they both stole my identity as a man. They stole my identity as a father. Forget the husband piece, but and that's what I had to get regrounded. And so again, that's why the title of the book is so perfect, because again, I do not know where I'd be with my identity today had the good Lord not given me that gift, that
The
smack
third.
across the face. Yeah. And
Mhm,
he's got a
mhm.
sense of humor because he did it with herpes. So
Yeah, how about that?
yeah,
So now
the gift that keeps on giving. It truly
that
kept on
keeps
giving.
on giving. Now,
Yeah.
my question is, as far as the future and resilience and how you continue to grow, and cover and recover and heal and move forward,
Yeah.
what does that look like for you?
For me,
What's that, and how's that continue to manifest in your life?
yeah, that's another great question. For me, what kept me going in my darkest of days, from a resilience perspective, was my two kids.
Mm,
I knew that they needed parenting still. There were some financial responsibilities that mom or dad had to step up and help them meet. And I knew that their mother was off the reservation. So I'm like, I have got to keep my stuff as together as I possibly can for the sake of my kids. And my therapist told me, she was great. She said, because my biggest concern throughout all of this was my kids, especially when I was locked up for 9 days and I didn't talk to them for 9 days. And I kept wondering what is going through their minds. I didn't know what was going through my mind, but they were the resilience part for me. Initially, they still are. But once I've moved down the road further, it's about, and I've prayed on it a lot. You talked about it earlier, right? It's not about power, money, or prestige. It's about purpose.
mhm.
And people have said that two separate people that didn't know each other said, "Look, it's not your story. Your book is not your story. It's his story told through you."
Yes.
And so I keep going to him, asking him, "What do you want me to do with this? Do you want me to continue to share this as a platform to share kind of a testimonial, or my growth in my faith and also to serve others that are in need? And the answer continues to be yes. And your comments to me earlier today, which were very encouraging, some days, just like you probably know with your own business, you go, do I keep going or do I shut the doors? What do I do? Where is this going, good Lord? And purpose. So it's a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And it's working through transitions each time. So I not only had lost my daughter for a couple of years. She came back into my life towards the tail end of her junior year in high school. So I got to spend the entire senior year of her high school. And then she went off to college for 4 years. So I had to deal with, being the empty nester there again. Not only, grieving the end of my marriage, which I was happy that it was over, but then, those transitions, the transitions of life that would have occurred naturally anyhow, had I still been married, but causes you to step back and reflect and go, now what? As I approach my golden years, I'm not ready to just, fish and play golf and do whatever. I want to do more, and
Mhm.
I'm energized to do more. And the book has given me the platform to be able to do that. In addition to my full time job, so it's really about finding purpose and recognizing that we've got an opportunity to give back to others. There are three things that I've thought about a lot that well, probably four that I've learned from it. First of all, adversity is a gift if you choose to accept it, right?
Right. Right.
We're all going to face pain of one form or another. But for me, the gifts of adversity have been being stronger in gratitude, being humbled,
Mhm.
becoming more patient, and becoming even more selfless.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, complacency and comfort are traps. And you've demonstrated that in your own life, right? Pursuing higher education, pursuing
Mm.
multiple degrees. Yeah. But when you become comfortable in life and you become complacent, they're traps. And
Yes. And and telling your story is selfless because one of my favorite songs is by The Fray, and it's How to Save a Life.
mm,
And the work that you do, sharing your testimony, helps save lives. It lets people know because grievers tend to isolate whatever
mhm,
their grieving event may be. As you said, you separate it out, they tend to isolate. And this information is life saving.
thank
And
you. Thank you for that.
I cannot, I mean, the people that I know, uh, and not just women, but the men and how they suffered in their situations. And quite honestly, some of them are still in a particular circumstance,
Mm,
but it's not involving arsenic that I know of,
right.
but it's still emotionally draining on and with that type of stress and that grief, even though people say, "Oh, I've made the adjustment in my life circumstance," and I continue to say this that I know that stress impacts your body
Mm,
on on the cellular level, and it will attribute to chronic illnesses. And so, is that a healthy life? No, it's not. And
right.
so we have to um, take measures to take care of ourselves, but also when we take care of ourselves and you have children, you have to we have to be mindful of that. I've done that. I told you a story about with my son when I spoke
Yep.
with you earlier today. I'm a grief recovery method specialist, but when I went through a grief class and got healing, my son was like, what happened here? Yeah. It changes how you navigate through life. And I just really appreciate I'm just so happy for you that you will be with your daughter
Yeah.
for her wedding this weekend.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's resilience. That's
Yep.
recovery, that's resilience, and that is to be celebrated. And for those individuals who are suffering, still
Mhm.
suffering, they know that a hope is possible.
Yes.
I would ask you to, I thank you again for being here, but can you share the name of the book, your
Sure.
handles? They will be at the end of this recording. So can you share that with our audience, please?
Absolutely. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and connect with you. It's been great, and I look forward to further conversations.
Thank you so very much. And I'm hoping that selfishly, I'm going to ask you to join us in, I think, September uh, for Domestic Awareness Month.
Sure.
I will circle back, but we have some other work that we will be continue communicating on. Once again, I thank you so much, and I am asking our listeners to click like and subscribe to Your Voice Heard with Dr. Marilyn Pendleton. Thank you so much, and have an amazing evening.
The title of the book is The Third Gift: My Dance with the Devil and Her Mother. It's available in ebook, hardcover, paperback, and audiobook, which I narrated from the closet in my home here. I did it myself, doing everything on a shoestring budget if I can. If folks want to find out more about my story or connect with me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, it's at The Third Gift. And my website is thirdgift.com because the third gift was taken, but everything else is at The Third Gift for my various social media platforms.